Good morning and welcome to the Kaballah of Purim, part 3. I would like to elaborate today on something that I began talking about yesterday in Shul, but I will take it and elaborate much more today. The story of Purim is a fantastic story and tale, which is known to many as a story that there was a villain, Haman, and Haman wanted to annihilate the Jewish people. And thankfully, a number of years earlier, Achashverosh had assassinated his queen Vashti and was in need of a new queen, a new wife, so he made a big contest amongst all the women in the kingdom, and over a matter of a year he chose his new wife, and it happened to be a Jewish girl, Esther. And Esther becomes the queen, and at that time the king elevated Haman to become a very important minister. He was, the Megillah says he was the highest level minister of all, and therefore, according to the king's edict, everyone had to obey Haman's desires and wills, and not only that, but they had to also bow to him, and Mordechai would not bow to him. Mordechai was also appointed to be an important figure there, but not at the level of Haman, so Haman was the one that everyone had to bow to. Mordechai, of course, a Jew, would not budge, would not bow, would not anything. Haman became very enraged and very, became, he probably always was, but this even brought it out more. He became very anti-Jewish, and he decided that he wants to kill every Jew, because he saw Mordechai as the leader of the Jews, and that's it. And he plotted to kill them, and he convinced the king to allow this to happen, and the king allowed it. The king agreed to this plan to kill all the Jewish people. And Mordechai found out about this, so he pleaded with Esther to go to the king, and she ended up going to the king and made a party, and at that party she invited Haman, and told the king, he wants to kill me and all my people, and Haman, the king now was angry at Haman, has him killed, and he and his 10 sons were hung at the gallows, and this was time, and he gave the Jewish people the right to defend themselves, and they slaughtered all the people that wanted to kill them, and it turned into a major holiday for the Jewish people. Thousands of years now we have been celebrating Purim, a wonderful time for families and children and everyone. That's the basic story that most people will tell you they know more or less how it went. But I want to share with you today in detail a fantastic talk that was given by the Lubavitcher Rebbe, by our Rebbe, many, many years ago, in 1962, on Purim. And the Rebbe asked the following question. At those Fabrengens, at those gatherings, he used to analyze the Megillah very much. And the Rebbe analyzed the 4th chapter that time. And in the 4th chapter, the Megillah tells us the following. And that was on page, if you want to read it, you can see it on page 1255 towards the bottom, chapter 4. Mordechai finds out everything. Mordechai finds out about Haman's plot, and he's very broken, and he goes to the king's palace outside, and he begins to cry and wail, and rents his garments, puts on sackcloth. He realizes that the Jewish people are under terrible threat. And the people saw that he was doing this, so they sent message to and Esther found out that her cousin, Mordechai was her cousin. And he was in the palace making a scene like that. So she asked him what's going on. So he told her what was going on. And he said to her through a messenger came back and forth. He said to Esther that you must go to the king and plead on behalf of the Jewish people to save them. You are now the queen. You have power in the palace, in the kingdom. You are the one that we have to rely on now. So she told him like this, that she cannot go. Why can't she go? Because you put this on, right? We cannot go. I cannot go because in the kingdom there was a rule that you couldn't appear to Achashverosh in his inner chamber unless he's called to see you, if he invited you. But to come uninvited was a capital offense, and he would kill you. He would kill you. So she said to him, I cannot go because I'm putting my life at serious risk if I go. So Mordechai realized that he has to figure out a way to convince her that she must go. So he said to her like this. He sent back the message through a messenger. He said like this, and you can see this for yourself in the next page on 1256. This is verse 13. Take a look at this. Then Mordechai said, to reply to Esther, do not imagine that you will be able to escape in the king's palace any more than the rest of the Jews. He says to her, you're Jewish. Remember that you're also Jewish. And there's a plot to kill all the Jews. If you think that it's going to go against the Jews outside the palace, but you in the palace is protected, think again. It's not going to happen. You will also, eventually, they will get to you too. So you may be thinking that you're putting your life at risk now by going to the king and maybe he'll kill you. You're going to be, in the palace, you're not protected. Then he continues, and he says to her like this, if you persist in keeping silent at a time like this, relief and deliverance will come to the Jews from some other place, while you and your father's house will perish. He says to her like this, we will survive with you or without you. The Jewish people are not going to be annihilated. Salvation will come. But you should know that if it doesn't come through you, if you don't act now to help us, forever you and your household, your father's household, you'll be shamed. You'll bring shame on your household that you were in the palace and you did nothing. So we will be saved. But how could you be silent? And if you are silent, your family's name will go down in perpetuity in a very negative way. So that was the second reasoning. That was the second thing he told her to convince her to go to the king, to put her life at risk. And the third point, he says, and we continue, and who knows, he says, whether it was just for such a time as this that you attained the royal position. He says to her, all these years that you were, think about it, you were a Jewish girl that was living a peaceful and quiet life in a very Jewish home, Mordechai's home, because he raised her. Her parents had died when she was a kid. So he raised her. And Hashem, by divine providence, you were taken to become the queen. And we always wondered, how did this happen? How did it happen? And don't think that she wanted to become the queen. She clearly did not want to become the queen. And nevertheless, it was forced upon her. So you're now in the position, and you always wondered why you're there. Maybe it was for this reason, for this moment, for you to go and save the Jewish people. Maybe this is why you got this position. That's what he tells her. And she becomes convinced. And she goes to the king. She calls for a 3-day fast. And the Jewish people fast for 3 days and 3 nights. And she also fasts, and she goes to the king. And we know the rest of the story. The rest of the story is a wonderful one. She invites the king, was happy to see her. He did not kill her. And he asked, what can I do for you? I'll give you half the kingdom if you ask for it. And she says, I don't want half the kingdom. I want a party. And I want you to come with Haman to the party. And at that party, I'll tell you what I want. And they come to one party, and she says, let's have another party the next day. And that the next time that they had the party, the next day, she tells the king that he wants to kill all the Jewish people. And Haman, as I said before, he was angry. And the story, that's the way the story unfolds. And she saves the Jewish people. The Jewish people are saved, and it's a great holiday. And then we have Purim. So the question that the Rebbe asked at that Farbrengen was as follows. He tells her, you're going to be killed if you don't do this. Right? Don't think you're going to escape. It's like the Germans, right? The Jews in the German Empire. The good Jewish Germans, right? That they were completely assimilated into German culture. They thought Hitler's not our problem. Maybe he'll go after the Jews in Poland. But we're good Germans. We're doctors, we're lawyers, we're devoted, we're loyal to the kingdom, to the Reich. No problem. But it turned out that it was a problem. No one got saved. He killed every Jew, no matter who they were. So Mordechai tells her, you're not going to be saved over here. Don't think you're going to escape this. That should have been enough, no? That would have been enough to convince her to go. By telling her, what's your problem? You're risking your life. So I'm telling you that if you don't risk your life, you're going to be dead anyway. So why didn't she go? That would have been enough to get her to go. But he adds another reason. What's the next reason? If I want to convince you to do something, right? I want to convince you to do something that you don't want to do. And I really have to use all my power of persuasion to get you to do it. And I pile up on you all the reasons why I want you to do it. So how would I do this? I would start with a basic reason. And then if that's not enough, I'd use a bigger reason. And then I'd use it an even greater reason. I go from bottom up. But over here, Mordechai goes the other way. He says, first of all, you have to go, if not, you're in danger. And if that doesn't help you, if you're not worried about your life, at least worry about your name. If you don't go, you and your father's house will go down in history as a failure. And if that doesn't help you, then maybe he tells it, this is the reason why you became the queen to begin with. Right? That's a reason to go. That's a reason to put your life at risk. That sounds like a insignificant reason compared to the first reason and even the second reason. What's the reason you should go? Because maybe for this reason you were brought into the kingdom. And that's what gets her, by the way, and that's what convinces her. Maybe this is why you became the queen. In other words, the fact that she'll be killed wasn't enough. The fact that she'll be shamed wasn't enough. But maybe for this reason I became the queen, this convinced her. It doesn't make any sense, right?
It does.
It does or it doesn't?
It does.
Why?
Because everybody's looking for their purpose, and that's the inner reason, that's your soul. That's why you came here, that's the purpose of you being here. That's higher than your physical.
So you have a point. But let's try to analyze that for a few moments. When you read at face value the words in the Megillah, it seems a little bit backwards. The argument that Mordechai is making to Esther seems backwards. If you want to get someone to do something, yeah? And don't forget, he says something else over here, by the way. He says to her, we don't even need you really to do this. He says, we'll get saved with you or without you. Right? We don't need you. But go anyway and put your life at risk. It just doesn't sound like a very persuasive way to get someone to do a risky job by saying, we don't really need you to do it. If you don't need me to do it, what are you bothering me? So what's the reason you should do it? Because maybe for this reason you are a queen to begin with. So for that reason I should risk my life. Now, understand something else. To risk your life is not a simple matter, even halachically. She argued with him, she could have argued, the halacha. The halacha means the Jewish law perspective. From Jewish law, from the perspective of Jewish law, is a person obligated to risk his own life to save someone else's? No. There's a famous law in the Torah, Chayecha Koidmin, your own life comes first. You're not obligated to go save others if your life is going to be in peril. That's the law. So she argued with him, or she could have argued with him, even from a halachic standpoint, I'm not even obligated to do this, because my life comes first. Then we also know that the Talmud tells us that she used another argument against him. She said to him, halachically, I'm not allowed to go for a different reason. Till now, every time she was brought to the king to live with him, it was against her will. She never wanted to. It was forced upon her. Don't forget, she's a Jew and he's not. And this is a Torah situation that is a quandary for her, a halachic quandary. So as long as she's forced, so she's, okay, she's forced, there's nothing she can do. But now Mordechai is asking her to voluntarily go to the king. And what are you going for? Once she goes to the king, and she'll find favor in his eyes, this is a potential sin, because he'll want to live with her as a husband and wife, and till now it was forced upon her. Now she's voluntarily going to him. That's already a very serious prohibition in the Torah for her. Oh, this is a big problem. So she had many reasons to get out of this situation. First of all, halachically, she doesn't have to, because you don't have to put your life at risk. And even if her life is not at risk, she says, this is also a halachic problem from a different point of view. Am I allowed to voluntarily go to Achashverosh and put myself in a position where he'll want to, be intimate with me without being, voluntarily on my part? Another problem. And then he tells her, and couple that with the fact that he says, we don't even need you. The Jewish people are going to be saved without you or with you. So if I was Esther, you could argue, no regular person would say, Mordechai, if you don't really need me, I have a lot of halachic problems with going, get someone else, do it the other way. Don't bother me. So what does he say to her? But maybe for this reason you became the queen. And that's the reason I should go, put myself at risk, and put myself at a halachic risk, just because of that? Maybe not. Me a day, he doesn't even know for sure. He's not saying it. It doesn't sound like he's saying conclusively that this is the reason you became the king. He says, me a day, who knows? Maybe this is the reason, and maybe not. And if it's not, then halachically you understand what I'm saying? She's got serious issues with going. And Mordechai doesn't sound very convincing over here, to be honest. He says to her, we're not dependent on you. We're dependent on God. He'll take care of us. But for you, you should go. Because maybe this is the reason you came into the world. So maybe this is the reason I came to... I'm not into the world. I'm into the kingdom. So for that reason, I should voluntarily offer my body to Achashverosh and put my life at risk for this. Any rational thinking person would say to Mordechai, thanks but no thanks. For all the reasons I've given. So the Rebbe explains a very, very beautiful idea. And he prefaces it by bringing up an old Jewish debate. The debate in Judaism has been for thousands of years. You know, when you open up the Torah and you read the 613 commandments, you don't know, many of the commandments, we don't really know the reasons why Hashem told us to do them. Right? We don't know the reason why Hashem told us, for example, to keep kosher and not to eat treif, not to eat pork. I think we don't know the reason. In fact, in the mitzvahs, there are three categories, you know, right? The ones that are rational, the ones that are that are very rational, and then the ones that are not rational.
That makes sense.
That don't have a reason for it. So the Jewish sages always debated the question whether or not it is our job to try, nevertheless, to find out the reasons for mitzvahs. Or obedience. Just do what Hashem says. You don't need to know the reason. And this is a very serious debate. Should we try to understand as much as possible? Should we try to rationalize everything? Should we try to probe and go further and further and further till we can't anymore? In other words, as much as you could, you should, and not. Others say no. Just do what Hashem wants. It's none of your business why. He didn't give you the reason. Don't look for it. What's your opinion?
I said we should learn more why Hashem said.
You should try to understand.
Yeah, we should try them, of course.
Okay.
Ultimately, we do it because Hashem said so, but we should learn as to why.
You're in good company. Because the Maimonides, the Rambam, for example, agrees with you. He says we should. And the reason he says we should is because he says God gave us a brain.
Amen.
And he wants his knowledge, and he wants our brains also to be in a relationship with God. He doesn't just want our hands and feet and our mouth that doesn't eat the pork. He wants our brain to be in a relationship with him. He wants to penetrate every aspect of the Jewish experience, of the human experience. And the brain is a big part of it. So your brain has to be filled with the knowledge of God.
Amen.
Oh, so that makes sense. But others, no. Why no? They have a reason why not. It's not just they want you to just be, to blindly follow. They say, your brain is limited. You're not going to understand everything anyway. So what happens if you do try to probe and delve and understand, and you won't understand? Or maybe your brain will mislead you. That's also a risk.
Happens.
Your brain can mislead you. So they say, just what you can't understand, don't even try to understand. And leave it alone. Just do what Hashem says. It's none of your business. That which Hashem says, you know the reason. I'm giving you the reason, so good. That you should understand. Obviously, God is sharing the reason with us. But if He's not sharing the reason with you, your brain is a dangerous thing. Meaning a dangerous thing. It can wander. It can develop the wrong idea. And what do you do then? Then you corrupt your brain. You corrupt your understanding. And that's even worse than not understanding. So there's two opinions on this issue. And for the most part, the Jewish people have followed the first opinion, that we should try to understand. And the reason is because as long as you're obedient, like you just said before, as long as you have that first, that foundation. Foundation is, I do what Hashem wants. No matter what. I do understand, I won't understand, I do it. Once you have that Kaballah of that acceptance of the yoke of heaven, that alone will protect your pursuit for knowledge, that it remain loyal to Hashem's, and you won't veer off and corrupt and misunderstand. So we're not in dangerous territory. That's the point. And that's how we do it. We try to learn. That's what learning Jewish scholarship is, and we learn and try it as much as possible. Even those mitzvahs that God did not tell us. This is true not only with regard to mitzvahs, but it's true with regard to what you just said before about a person's whole mission in life. If I were to ask you, or you, why were you brought down to this world? Why did God decide, how many ever years ago you were born, say 50 years ago, why did God decide to send down your soul here on earth?
I don't know.
Do you have an answer to that question?
No.
It's
I
very
haven't
deep,
found my
Rabbi.
purpose.
That's a deep this
Yeah.
question.
Is it our job to try to find that out?
Yes, Rabbi.
Is it our
Yes,
job to
Rabbi.
try to find it out?
Yes, big time.
It's
Yes.
a good question, huh?
Yes.
Let me ask you, I mean,
Yes. It is. With
You're
the
gonna
Chabad
fulfill your purpose.
it's the
You
same
don't know
debate,
what-
by the way. It's
I
the
don't
same,
know my
it's the
purpose.
same debate.
Yes.
I don't know.
Is it our job to probe and try to find out why we're here? Or
Yes,
just
I
do the
say
mitzvahs
yes.
and
Do
that's
your best.
it? And
Do
do your
your be-
mitzvahs,
I will do
you
my
have a
best.
regiment, you have a list of things you have to
But
do
my
in the
best is
Torah,
not
the
good enough.
613. Don't ask for questions, just do that.
I don't do the 6:30.
But when you think about it,
I don't.
if you think about it, we try our best, right?
Exactly.
Okay. Well, we should try, but at least that we know what we have to do. So that's it. You don't have to look to see why my individual soul was sent down here. Another opinion says, yeah, you should. What do you mean? If you were born and you're here living for 120 years, what do you mean? You're not going to look to find out what you're here for? How could you not?
I think sometimes people
If imagine
exactly
this,
different.
imagine this. You get a call one day from God.
Uh-huh.
Theoretically, hypothetically. You get a call from God and he says, I want you to pick yourself up now
Uh-huh.
and go to Ecuador for 6 years.
You better obey and do it.
And you'll do it. You arrive in Ecuador.
You better obey and do it.
Are you going to wonder and be curious, why did God tell me to come? He didn't tell me why. He doesn't
will
tell me
reveal
what
it
I
to
should
you.
do.
Just do it.
Would you not? I know, but what am I supposed to do there? Once I'm there, of course I'm going to go. But once I'm there, what am I here for?
You'll
Is
be
it not
revealed.
is it not expected that a normal human being is going to try to understand why did God send me to Ecuador? So if God sent you down to planet Earth when you were born, is it not only expected that a rational, healthy human being is going to ask himself, why am I here? Well, the simple answer is, what do you mean, why are you here? To do the mitzvahs, to serve God, and do the 613 commands that He gave us at Mount Sinai. Fine. That's an easy one. But at the end of the day, He sent not only, I'm not just a part of a collective, I'm an individual Jew as well. I'm an individual person. Why did He find it necessary to send my soul down to earth? Do I have a special mission within the context of the Jewish people or the human race? And the answer is, of course, we do. But what is it? So the truth is like this. Alter Rebbe says in Tanya, I mentioned the Gemara, the Talmud tells us an interesting story. That there were two sages that had a discussion one day, and one asked the other, tell me, well, your father, he was a famous sage, he asked him, your father, what was that mitzvah, amongst all the mitzvahs that he did, and he did all of them, of course, but what was the mitzvah that he really found to be specially connected to his soul? That he had a special passion for that mitzvah? And he answered him, it was the mitzvah of tzitzis. The fringes, the tzitzis. In other words, that sage he understood his soul, he knew his soul, and he realized, he figured out through a spiritual person, he saw that his soul has a special connection to the mitzvah of tzitzis, and that's why that mitzvah he took to a whole different level. And so we see from here that there is such a concept that every soul has within the context of Torah and mitzvahs, there's a reason why your soul came down specifically. And God gives it special talents and special powers and special abilities. So it's only incumbent upon us to try to figure out why we're here. Now, the question then is, why was that sage's soul specially connected to the mitzvah of tzitzis? And why my soul is maybe connected to the mitzvah of tzedakah? And this one's soul connected to the mitzvah of kindness and whatever else it is. For this, we have no idea. The Alter Rebbe says, Rabbi Shner Zalman, the first Chabad Rebbe, says in Tanya, he says that the specific mission for every person, for why he or she is sent down to earth, it's important for us to find out what that mission is. But we have to understand that when we do find out, we will ask ourselves, why my soul was sent down for this mission and someone else's was someone else? Why that? There's no answer for that. This is something that only God decides which soul should do what mission. Even though, if you think about it, it makes no sense. Sometimes, for example, I'll give you an example. The Baal Shem Tov says, a fascinating idea. He says that a soul can come down to earth for 70 or 80 years to live a whole life. And what would be the reason for this life? Why is he sent here? What was the mission for that soul? What was the main thing that soul was meant to accomplish over here? He says it could be that it was meant to accomplish, to do a favor one time to one person. That God would send down a soul to live for 70, 80 years or more, or 120 years hopefully, for one act of kindness for one person. It was worth sending down the soul for that reason. Now, it doesn't take 120 years to do a favor. So obviously, throughout your life you have to do all the mitzvahs. But what was the reason why your soul came here? There was a special reason why, specifically this soul, why is it here? It had a one specific mission, ultimate mission, to do that person a favor. Now you say to yourself, does that make any sense? You're going to send down a soul for 120 years to live here on earth, to do a favor for 1 minute for one person? That's right, you send down a soul, it's worth it. To pluck a soul out of heaven, send it down to earth for one favor? Yeah, the answer is, you don't understand it, and this defies logic perhaps, because we're dealing with a realm that is super rational, it's beyond knowledge, it's God's world, it's God's mystery, and God created knowledge, God created rationale, He's beyond it. So you can't ask Hashem, why did you do this? Because why is a human logical question. God's beyond logic, is beyond all that. It's good. Alter Rebbe says this is in the realm of the Geirah, lots. There's no reason, like you win a lottery, right? Why did you win the lottery and not someone else? You earned it? You worked for it? No, you bought a ticket. It's God's will. That's it. There's no rationale why this person wins $500,000 and that person wins nothing. We don't know why. That's God's will beyond rationale. It's God's will that this neshama should be the tzitzis guy, and this neshama should be the kindness person, this neshama should be here for whatever reason. Now imagine you go through your life without ever knowing what your mission is.
Boring.
It's not a question of boring, it's a tragedy. It's a tragedy. A person who lives here on earth has no idea why he's here. No idea why he's here.
But sometimes the mission is not for you, it could be for somebody else.
Or maybe the soul can reincarnate
No,
in somebody else's family.
That's
and
fine.
A person can
But
accomplish what Hashem
your
and that soul are
incarnation,
for.
your soul that came into your body, why was it here? You have a mission.
But maybe you didn't finish the mission, Rabbi.
Fine, but you finish your part. It could be that soul has more missions that will come into reincarnation. But your life and the reason why it came into your body, there's a mission. It's good to know what that mission is, and it's only it's only sensible that we should try to find out. Now, if we don't, we may go through life not really knowing, because who's here to tell us what our specific mission is? But imagine someone tells you what your mission is. A big tzaddik, a big holy man comes to you and says, Moshe, your mission is this. Go do it. You would feel unbelievably empowered. You would say, my life is worth it. I know why I'm here. Could you imagine the empowerment of knowing of a tzaddik coming to you and saying, this is why you came to the world, for this specific mission, to be the best teacher. That's why you came here to teach children. Imagine a tzaddik that ever came to you and said, I know why you're here, to teach children. You know how passionate you would be about teaching children?
Absolutely.
If the Rebbe if Moshe Rabbeinu came to you and said, I know why you're here. You're here to help that family. There's a family that your soul was sent down to help that specific family. Can you imagine the devotion you would have to that family? You would feel so empowered. Every day you would wake up with this unbelievable adrenaline. I know why I'm here. It would be nice if everyone had a tzaddik tell us why we're
But
here.
it wouldn't be fair.
It wouldn't be fair for who? For someone else.
For mankind.
Well-
we gotta find it ourselves.
Well, how do you find it? It's not so simple. Okay, you could try to find it. She has a point. There's ways, because no one's telling us. At the end of the day, we don't have anyone telling us specifically.
But we should seek.
Oh, how do we seek? There's ways to find it.
We should seek.
You look at yourself and you find out, what are your special talents?
Exactly.
Someone has a talent for teaching. Obviously, maybe then you're meant to teach. Someone has a talent for speaking. Music. Someone has a talent for whatever. So obviously there's ways to narrow it down, to try, where are my strengths? So you got to look inward to find what is my talent, what is my, and therefore you're closer to finding out what your mission in life is. But imagine someone comes to you at the level of Moshe Rabbeinu, Moses, and says, I have the answer for you. Your mission in life is to help the Moskowitz family through their problems. Could you imagine someone tells you that? Someone with authority, obviously. You would be in seventh heaven. Would there be a question of you helping the Moskowitz family? You devote your entire life to that family.
As long as you don't expect something in return.
We're not talking about that.
But some people, they do it because what am I going to get out of this? Then it's not.
You know what you get? Once you're told your mission, what do you need to get? That's what you got out of it, everything.
That's it.
You have your reason to trade. You have the reason for life. That's the best thing you got out of it.
That's it.
You don't need any more. Here comes Mordechai and tells Esther the
That's
following.
your lottery. Once somebody tells
Exactly.
you that, it's your lottery.
So Mordechai comes to tell Esther, listen, you're giving me this whole runaround about how halachically you may not be able to go, and maybe you're putting your life at risk. All that is good. If this was not your mission in life. But he's saying, mi idea, who knows, this is your mission in life. This is why your soul came down to earth. For this moment. So you're right. He's telling her like this. The Jewish people don't need you to do this. Because their salvation is not dependent on one Esther. Mm-hmm. Their salvation comes from God, and He'll take care of them. But this is not about the Jewish people as much as it's about you. This is why your soul came down to earth. And I am the head of the Sanhedrin. I know what I'm talking about. I don't know if he said those words.
But he put her there.
Into the queen.
Mordecai, yeah.
He didn't put her there. She was taken by the king.
But she offered her. He told her, go there.
Oh, that, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, that time, yeah, exactly. So he's telling her. And she's listening to the head of the Sanhedrin. She knows who Mordechai is. She knows that Mordechai is the Moses of his day. Mm-hmm. She knows that Mordechai is the Moshe Rabbeinu of his day. And Mordechai, the Moshe Rabbeinu of my day, tells me what I'm here for. Then all the halachic, debates and all the questions: am I allowed to sacrifice my life? Am I not allowed to sacrifice my life? Am I allowed to offer myself to Achashverosh? Am I not allowed to offer myself to Achashverosh? Once you know that this is the reason you came to the world, all those questions fall to the wayside. Mm-hmm. That was the most empowering thing that she heard from him. Your life is going to go down with the Jewish people. Maybe yeah, maybe not. She could have still thought, I'm not sure, maybe I will be protected. I'm not halachically obligated. That wasn't enough to get her to go. To tell her that your name will be shamed, that's a reason to give up my life. So I'd rather live and be in shame. You can argue against it. But when he gave her the zinger at the end, he said, this is why your soul came down to earth. At that point, there was no more arguing.
But she was not happy, regardless.
She was very happy.
In the kingdom? With the pagans?
No, I'm not talking about in the kingdom. I'm talking about this mission.
Oh.
For sure.
That was her purpose.
Right. So he tells her, at that point, there's no arguing, halachically. Once the head of the tzaddik of the time tells you, this is why you're here, that's why you were born, that's why you came down to earth, you give up your life for that. What then are you going to do? Not fulfill your mission? What then? What's the option? To say, well, I'm not allowed to? You're not allowed to do what you came down to earth for? How could that be? So you go on Mesilas Nefesh.
But you say Mordecai was a tzaddikin.
He was a great tzaddik, yeah.
But we have to understand, and in our times, there's people that they pretend to be tzaddikim, are telling people die for their wrong reasons.
We're not going there. We're not talking about that. We're talking about legitimate people. We know real holy people. These are not people that are... We know who Mordechai is. Mm-hmm. We don't have to debate that issue. And she certainly knew who Mordechai was. So that's what he was.
Isn't it true also that a soul comes down for rectification for past mistakes or for past sins?
Okay, good. So that's the same thing. What's the mission of this soul? It's either to fix a past mistake, whatever it is. It makes no difference. But it's important to know what it is. And when you do, it's very, very empowering, and the life becomes meaningful. What does this teach us? I told the story yesterday of the famous tzaddik and chassid of the Alter Rebbe. Were you here when I told the story? So the story was, I'll do it brief, I know we have to go daven, but give me 5 more minutes. There was a chassid of the Alter Rebbe, and the Rebbe in that Fabrengen mentioned this story, who was a big scholar and rabbi, a wonderful person, on a high level, you know. And one day the Alter Rebbe tells him, you should go become a wagon driver. You should become a taxi driver. Like today, it would be the equivalent of a taxi driver. Uber driver, right. You should become an Uber driver. Yeah. Imagine the Rebbe comes to me or anyone. I can't compare in any way, shape, or form to the big chassid of the Alter Rebbe in a stretch. But even a person like myself, if the Rebbe told me to become an Uber driver, I would do it without question. But you would be shocked. I would be shocked. Is that really what you want me to do? This chassid was infinitely greater than I am, and becoming a wagon driver perhaps is even worse than becoming an Uber driver. Now the Alter Rebbe told me to become a wagon driver. A wagon driver in those days, a man with big boots, rough, these peasants. It was a peasant type of job. Farmers, it wasn't exactly so he really didn't want to do it, and his wife convinced him. She said, you're a chassid. How could you not listen to the Rebbe? So he ended up becoming a wagon driver. And he started driving people, and that's what his life became, a wagon driver. But he still maintained his Hasidic customs and everything. He davened long, and he made sure that every day. One day he takes a passenger, and he's driving the wagon, and the passenger is a rich guy, and he stops in an inn one night, and this wagon driver, this chassid, retires for the night. They go to their own rooms, and the chassid wakes up at midnight, and he's davening. Midnight prayer, which is over this destruction of the temple, the mourning for the temple, and he's doing it loud enough to wake up the person next, that his customer. And the customer wakes up, and he goes to watch how this guy is davening. And he sees him davening, and he's beginning to become emotionally stirred by it. Turns out this person was a Jew. He didn't know it. The guy, the chassid didn't know it. But he was a Jew, and he had left Judaism many years before. But he was, as a kid, he was a Jew that lived in a very Jewish observant home. But he left it all. And he married out, and the whole thing. And suddenly, this chassid struck a chord with him. He reminded him of his youth. And it turns out that he told the chassid the next morning that he wants to return to his roots, and he became a full-fledged Jew again, over time. And then the Rebbe told him, after this happened, you don't have to be a wagon driver anymore. That's it, you can go back to being a rabbi. So now he realized that the whole reason that he was told to become a wagon driver is to bring this Jew back to Judaism. So here you have a Jew that's, for many, many years, he was being a rabbi, and he was being a big chassid, and till then, he didn't know what his real mission in life was. Suddenly, a few years, he becomes what he would never expect to become. An Uber driver, right? A wagon driver. And yet, that was his mission. So sometimes it makes sense to us, sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes it doesn't. You would think that this rabbi with the talents that he had was certainly to become a big rabbi. But no, he wasn't. It was to become a wagon driver. So he can bring that Jew back to Judaism. This is true with every one of us. We have our moments. Baal Shem Tov says all it takes is one moment. You got to find your moment. And since we don't know our moment, so every moment is the moment, because you don't know if maybe this is it. And if we pass on those moments, we lost our whole raison d'etre. It would be a tragedy of enormous proportion. And that's what Mordechai told Esther. Mi yodeya, the words mi yodeya, who knows, can be either we don't know, it's doubt, or it can be we're going beyond knowledge, we're reaching into the super rational level, and I'm telling you that this is your mission. And why this is your mission and no one else's, we don't know. That's the mi yodeya, that's their super rational reality. But it is your mission. And go do it. And she picks herself up and goes and does it, and here we are celebrating Purim 2,500 years later. So, this is a fantastic idea. It's very relevant to each one of us, because who doesn't want to live the life and know why he's here or she's here? So it would be nice to have Mordechai walk into this room and tell you exactly why you came to this world. It certainly would be very nice. But until that happens, you have to never pass on an opportunity. And when you're asked to do a favor for another person, make sure to do it, because maybe that's why your soul came down to earth. And if you miss that opportunity, imagine you missed your life's mission. And so it goes with everything else. You never know. Maybe it's the mitzvah of tzitzis that's your soul's special connection. Maybe it's the mitzvah of tefillin. Maybe it's the mitzvah of charity. Maybe it's the mitzvah of helping an elderly fellow. Who knows? So when these opportunities come your way, never miss them. Because if you do, you never know. You may have missed the reason for being. Have a wonderful week.